Hi everyone, my name is Ravnil Singh, but most of you know me as Ravi. I'm making this video just to take you through of how I made the song Bawara, which is my second single. It's a combination of Hindi and English lyrics. I'll also explain the idea which brought about Bawara. And this song is actually for everyone. If I go into the details of how I made each and everything, then it would take like 5 hours, and that would be more for music producers. However, I'll stick to like basics so that everyone can understand how I made this song. Before I do that, I'll just take you through my home studio, aka my bedroom. So I have a few. That's my semi-acoustic Yamaha there, which sometimes I use to record. I play live and record it directly into my mic. I have a Ashton electric guitar on the corner there. I use that also in some recordings. Kit that I got at a very cheap price in Lotoka. I got it for $150 at a second-hand shop, but it works fine. It works very well. This is my mic. I got this a few years ago. This is a Rode NT1A mic with a reflector shield, pop filter. It has a shock mount and a stand. Very good mic, very clear, and known to be one of the most silent mics in the world, and it's very reasonable price. Coming to my machine that makes it all work. This is my HP. It's an i7 with 16 GB of RAM, so it can take a lot of load of my DAW. This is just my fridge, nothing very important inside. Now coming to my table here, I have a large Hisense screen which is connected to my laptop with a HDMI. Just gives me a good view to work in. I have two Yamaha HS8s, which are very good studio monitors, which I use for my mixing and mastering. Then I have my audio interface. This is a Scarlett 2x2. Very good interface, very low latency, and I've been using this from the start and I love it. Gives a very clear sound. Coming to my MIDI controller. This is a 61 key Behringer MIDI controller, the UMX61. These two I've had it from the start. It was given to me by my uncle in New Zealand, and I use it a lot. I'm not a keyboard player. I'm more of a guitarist than a keyboard player. Actually, I'm not even a guitarist. I'm an intermediate level guitar player. I can't call myself a guitarist. I'm not that good. And but I use this a lot just to get keys, get chords, and stuff like that. And I just have a wireless keyboard and mouse just to make things easier. Underneath, I have a few more things. So I have a cajon. Haven't used this in any session yet, but I'm planning to use it either by directly recording it in my mic, or maybe playing an acoustic version of one of my songs. And I have the Akai MPD 218. Very nice drum pad and drum machine. Actually, I use this in Bawara just to get plucks and some rhythms. Both of these was given to me by someone special. She might actually be in this room right now. Okay, so that was my studio, and now I'll take you through how I made Bawara. So now we in the session. The DAW that I use is FL Studio. Used to use FL Studio 12. Actually, I made Bawara in FL Studio 12, but now I've upgraded to FL Studio 20, which is awesome. So the idea, I guess, that started it all, I was actually making another song, which will come out later, sometime this year. And I was going through some sound banks, and I came across this lead. It's an arpeggio. Arpeggio, for short, we call it ARP. It's basically a combination of keys, usually from a single chord, that play in succession. So this was the ARP, sure all of you recognize that from the start of the song. It's actually a Nexus patch, which Nexus is one VST that I use a lot, and it has awesome sounds. I also did some processing in for this to make it sit better. I guess the processing and stuff I'll put in another video if I make it for generally for my fellow producers, and go into more detail of what processing I've done for each of the instruments and vocals. So that up is what started it all. And then, like for me, every song there needs to be that X factor sound, that thing that, you know, sets the tune, sets the tone of the song. And for me personally, that sound was this pluck that also is showcased in the song. So it's a very rich, very wide song. I've put a lot of reverb and delay on it to give it some width in the stereo field, and also have EQ'd it a lot. I do a lot of EQs for instruments to clear frequency spectrum so that each instrument can fit in its own frequency spectrum and not be overpowered by other instruments. So yeah, that was the sound. So this is the sound. So I use this keyboard to put in some sounds, but otherwise, because I'm not a keyboard player and my timing is not that good, I usually make it into a piano roll, as you can see here. I'll use the piano roll a lot, so you can see that playing there. And so yeah, these two instruments is actually what started Bawara. And then as soon as I heard these two instruments, the whole song came into my head, beat wise. Okay, and then the lyrics, I realized that Valentine's Day was just around the corner, so it had to be like this kind of a love song. And I was working on a Bawara song that I would have released later on, but I just decided to use that concept in this song. So I used that Bawara concept in this song. So these two instruments, as I've already pointed out, started it all. Okay, so now then I introduced the bass line. So for this song, I didn't want the bass to be too powerful, like when you hear in hip hop and R&B, bass and 808s carry a lot of weight, but this song is more pop oriented, and it's like an indie pop. So I decided to give the bass a bit more less profile than all other instruments and the vocals. So the bass line is very simple. So so this is actually, let me see what VST this is. So this is also Nexus. It's a big bass. Yeah, so that was the bass line. So when you add all those three together, so that's the initial start of the, then I bring in some bongo, like it's actually not bongo drums, but I name, as you can see here, it seems that I'm very well organized, but I do all my organization after I finished a song and in preparation for mixing and mastering. That's when I organize all this, color code all this, and it looks nice now, but when I'm in my working process, it doesn't look like this. So I've labeled this one the bongo, but it's not actually the bongo, but it just sounds like a bongo, so I label it like that. And this is the sound. Yeah, doesn't sound anything like a bongo, but you know, this is just naming, so I just named it like that. And so all that together sounded like this. So this is the start of the song, the whole start of the song. So that's the whole start of the song. And then my main vocals come in. A lot of people have asked me how do I process my vocals. I actually 60% of my time in production is processing vocals, and I have researched a lot, and I've seen so many tutorials, and then I've come up with my own way of processing vocals. If I go through the details, again, it will take a lot of time. But in short, I do a lot of EQing, I do a lot of compression, and then I do a lot of embellishments. Embellishments is just giving it space, doubling it, and then adding vocal sweetness, or what some people in the producer circle called ear sweetness or ear candy. So as you can see, so this is my main vocal.
जरा जरा धीरे से आकर तुम हमसे करो गुफ्तगू.
So that's my main vocal. As you can see, there's a lot of spatial processing that I've done, reverbs, delays, some widening. For all my spatial processing, I don't do it directly on the insert, I do it as a send. Sorry, I'm just going into producer jargons again. But yes, I did a lot of reverb and delay and EQing. So if you look at my vocal processor chain, it's quite a lot. So it's a long processor chain. Okay, so there's a lot going on there. And of course, you have to add harmonies. You have to add, as I said, vocal sweetness. So there's a lot of them in. So I've pitched it up an octave. I've pitched it down an octave. Layered it double and triple times in some cases, and then in the end, that's how the vocal turns out. I'll actually go through the rest of the instruments, and then I'll come back to the vocals again. And then I think, let me just have a look. Okay, this is, you might have noticed sort of a string section going dun, so this is the string section that, as you can see, there's a dip going on because there's a side chain going in. On its own, it doesn't sound like, you know, good, but when you add it with everything else, it sounds good. So you can hear the rise and fall. So that's what I've labeled here, orchestral synth. And I use a lot of tambourines in my songs. I just love the sound. It has a lot of nice high frequencies, and just the way it captures the whole song in just a half-second beat is why I use the tambourine a lot. So here I used it in the second part of the verse, so you can hear it here. Very subtle. I also think it's panned a bit. Let me just have a look. Yeah, it's panned towards the left. I use a lot of panning on the left and right just to keep things interesting. So as you can see, if I go through all my channels, there's many things that are panned here and there, and I love doing that. It makes the song, keeps the song interesting, and keeps your ears, when you listen in stereo, either with headphones or good stereo speakers, it keeps your ears entertained. So yeah, so that was the tambourine. And then of course in the chorus I bring in the kick. So even the kick, I do a lot of low end processing. Is like a very intricate thing, and it takes time for me to do because I'm still young. I don't have good well-trained ears for mixing engineer ears, so it takes a lot of time for me to get these things right. So that's the kick. Very tight kick with little or no tail, so that it can fit nicely. And I've actually sidechained this kick to the bass. So sorry, sidechain automation is not on, but yeah, I've sidechained it to the bass so that those frequencies don't clash. I use Nicky Romero's kickstart for sidechaining. And then you have the snare, very tight, and I've compressed this snare, and I've also added a transient modifier, because sometimes when you compress things, that initial transient becomes small, so you have to modify that. So, and then the hi-hats, I also like to play with the hi-hats rather than keeping it just at a single beat. I like to mix it up a bit. If I isolate the hi-hat, that's how it sounds like. Okay, and then I also have these claps which come later on in the song. This is very nice. It has a stereo feel. I've also done a lot of processing in this to help it fit in with the song. There's another thing that I would like to point out here, because this song was also had a Hindi, is basically a Hindi song, so I had to put an element of something Indian in it, so I put this sitar, just buried it in the second part of the verse. You might have noticed it or might not have noticed it, but it was there. So just a few notes just to give that Indian touch to this song. And then in the later parts we have some pianos in the bridge. For all my songs I usually have two verses, a bridge, and then something different in the end. I like adding bridges. It keeps the song from getting too monotonous, and usually in my bridges I just change everything, the beat, sometimes I change the chords, just to get something new in the listener's ear. So there is a hi-hat here, as you can see, and then you have the bridge piano there, and then there's the drop. So that's the drop there. And I also have some flute. So you must have heard that in the background. Yeah, so that's just some flutes. It's actually not a flute, but it sounds like a flute, so I named it a flute synth. And I add a lot of fillers. So as you can see here, these 5 sections I've dedicated to fillers. Fillers are just crashes, rides, and rises, and sweep downs and sweep ups. These are things that keep everything going, keep the beat going, keep the listener entertained, and keeps everything interesting. Let me see what these 2 tracks are. Oh, so this is the guitar riff. So this is the bridge guitar riff, and then those are some guitar chords. So together yeah. So all together the bridge sounds like that. And then the drums go. Yeah, so in the end, so for me the curve of the song has to become more and more interesting as it goes towards the end. So I add more and more elements, and sometimes I have to take out some elements when it starts interfering with other instruments, but in this case I kept most of the instruments and put it all in the end and tried to fit them all together with EQing and panning left and right. So in the end everything comes together. So those are basically the instruments that I use. I'll just touch a little bit on the vocals. You've already listened to my main vocal. So these are some octaves that I use, high octave and a low octave. So if I highlight them,
अब शरारती हो गया है मन जाने किस बात पे.
So on its own they don't sound very nice. So this is the low octave. Doesn't sound nice at all. This is the high octave. but when you add it all,
हो गया है मन जाने किस बात पे
that sounds nice. And then, so those were the octaves, and then I added the harmonies. I don't process harmonies. I usually record them directly and then process them to fit the main vocal.
इश्क क्या होती है ऐसे शुरू
So
इश्क क्या होती
that's on the left,
इश्क क्या होती है
and then along with the main
इश्क
vocal.
क्या होती है ऐसे शुरू
So that's how they sound. And towards the end, I just add everything. Actually, just before the bridge. So
It is going nuts and my heart is going crazy
as you can see, there's a lot of delays and reverbs. Actually, it's not that much delays because I actually have automation going here. So the automation is not on, that's why there's so much delay happening. But the delay comes on and off. And yeah, that was basically the vocals and all the
It
instruments.
is going nuts and my heart is going crazy
So that's just basically how I made Bawara. And so like I said, this is just the basic instruments that I used. I did not go in detail of how I processed each of the instruments, how I processed my vocals in detail, because that would be a long video. So I hope all of you enjoyed it, and my latest single is out now, Loved by You, and also I'm planning on releasing my next single maybe sometime in June. It's actually a Hindi single, and it's about my mom and mothers. I actually planned to release it on Mother's Day, but it's just I couldn't get my logistics and timing right to finish production on that song. So I'm gonna release it in June, and that song actually might be the best work I've done so far, and even in the future. I think that will be my best song and the song that will be closest to my heart. It'll be a very slow and mellow song, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel to look forward to more songs from me. If you want rundowns of how I made Loved by You and also my first single Tukur Tukur, you can message me in YouTube or you can comment below, and I'll give you a quick rundown on how I made that songs. So thank you, and I hope you enjoyed it.